Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Charge for Change program information session. We're going to give a few more minutes for people to join us, and then we'll get started. In the meantime, I'm going to launch a poll for you to answer, just to understand a little bit better what it is that you're looking for by attending the webinar today. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to launch the poll for you. You should see the poll now. I'm going to leave it open for a few more minutes. And then we'll get started. Well, perfect. I see people responding live, and I see you all want to know everything, which is great. This is definitely the right place for this. We're going to cover all of the points mentioned here, and dive deep into the form, the eligible costs. So hopefully you'll get a better understanding of the program. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now. And I'll start sharing my screen with the presentation. Perfect. So I guess before starting with the presentation, I'll start with some introduction and some housekeeping items. So my name is Émilie Fargeout. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a Canadian settler currently living in Toronto, land of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And this land is also now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. I'm also the program manager for the Charge for Change program, presented by Aviva Canada and Earth Day Canada. And after 2 successful years, the program is back for a 3rd year in 2025. I'm here today to give you more details about the program, as well as answer any questions you may have. For all your questions, please enter them in the Q&A section of the webinar, and I'll answer them after the presentation. Finally, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, my coworker Mandy Albert, Programs Director at Earth Day Canada, is here to assist you. And with that, I'll share my screen again, and I'll get started with the presentation. No, sorry. Let's start at the beginning. That's better. Okay, perfect. So for the agenda for today, I'll go back to the inception of the program with how the Aviva Canada and Earth Day Canada partnership happened, as well as the role each organization has within the program. Then I'll talk about the advantages for communities, as well as the positive impacts the program has on communities and the environment. And I'll take some time here to go over what happened in the first 2 years of the program. After that, I'll talk about the program objectives and the available funding. We'll spend some time looking at the eligibility criteria, as well as the eligible costs. And I'll wrap it all up with the program timeline, the application process, and we'll spend some time understanding the application form. So when you're, applying, you kind of already know what we're looking for there. So, how did the program start? Well, we know that the cost of charging infrastructure is a major obstacle for communities looking to make the transition to EVs. And while the Canadian government has put in place financial aid programs, more funding opportunities are always welcome. And Aviva Canada wanted to play a part in this by supporting communities and their members in the transition to EVs. Earth Day Canada is a national non-for-profit organization whose mission is to support individuals, institutions, and organizations, reduce their ecological footprint. And the way we do this is with programs in various fields, including sustainable mobility. We know that a large portion of greenhouse gas emissions come from transportation, and we're delighted to be able to support Aviva Canada in their initiative to accelerate the transition to EVs with the Charge for Change program. So if we now look at the role of each of the organizations, Aviva's role is to provide the funds for the Charge for Change program, as well as be a member of the selection committee. As for Earth Day Canada, as the sponsor of the program, its role is to provide support to applicants during the application period and to support recipients of the funds throughout the construction phase. Earth Day Canada also has representatives in the selection committee, and it will be the one distributing the funds once the communities are selected. What are the advantages of the program for the communities? Well, we'll talk about this a little bit later as well, but the main thing to know about the program is that 100% of the project costs are covered by the program, which means that it removes the financial barrier that communities have to install EV infrastructure. And then from there, it's kind of a snowball effect where with more infrastructure in place, residents feel more at ease to transition from an internal combustion engine vehicle to an electric vehicle. We know that a lot of people have range anxiety where they don't know if they're going to be able to find a charger in time before running out of battery. And so having more infrastructure in place helps them transition more easily. And then finally, when we look at the positive impacts of the program on the environment, by removing internal combustion engine vehicles and replacing them with electric vehicles, the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that is emitted is significantly reduced. So now, if we look at how the program has impacted communities over the last 2 years, you can see here a map with all the communities that have received funding so far. And we go from Alberta to Ontario all the way to New Brunswick. And in total, 15 communities received funding the first 2 years of the program. And it allowed 8 communities to build their very first EV chargers. 7 communities already have their chargers in service as we are speaking right now. And we reached out to communities in September to know, how many charging sessions took place, and a total of 2,600 charging sessions took place, with a total of 8,300 charging hours accumulated. So numbers are great, but we also wanted to know how the program impacted the communities. And so we have here a couple of quotes from communities who received funding, and we can see that it did more for them as well, allowing the municipality of East Ferris to start the transition of their municipal fleet to electric vehicles. And without the program, this would not have been possible, or it would have taken them more years before they could do that. And if we look at the town of Thessalon, it attracted tourists in their community, and they spent time in the community. They stayed at local accommodations, explored, local stores, cafes, restaurants. And so having EV chargers in your community can also help with the economic development of your community. If we move on with the program objectives and the available funding, the goal of the program is to fund electric vehicle charging installations in underserved communities across Canada. We'll go back to the definition of underserved communities when we go over the eligibility criteria. And for now, I'll go over the available funding. So the program is running for 3 years, and each year $750,000 are available for communities. There is a maximum funding available per community, though, and it is $125,000. And it covers 100% of the project costs, as I was saying earlier. That means that each year, at least 6 communities will be selected. And I'm saying at least 6 communities here because obviously if the project costs are lower than $125,000, it allows us to provide funds to more communities. And it was actually the case the first 2 years of the program that we were able to provide more funds to more communities. Let's now dive into the eligibility criteria. So I will only cover here the main eligibility criteria. There are more, and those are available in the application guide on the Charge for Change website. But here I really want to focus on the main eligibility criteria. So this section will be divided into 2. The first one will focus on the applicants themselves, and then the second part will focus on the project's requirements for the program. So as you can see here, the projects and the applicants must be located in Canada, and the applicant must be a municipality with less than 100,000 residents or an Indigenous community. So by looking at municipalities with less than 100,000 residents, we are targeting municipalities in rural and remote areas. And we know that for smaller municipalities, taking on such a project can be a challenge in terms of human resources. And so if you're used to working with an external organization for project management and supporting with application as well, you're more than welcome to do that. And the costs of working with an external organization are covered by the program. There are 2 conditions, though, to working with an external organization. The first one is that we ask that the application is submitted by the municipality itself, or if it is the external organization submitted the application, that it is submitted on behalf of the municipality. And the second condition is that the funds will be distributed directly to the municipality. So as the external organization, you will receive funding from the municipality once they get the funds from the program. The third eligibility criterion for the program, and that's where we get into the underserved community bit that I was talking about earlier, is that we're looking at communities that have no EV chargers at the moment or very few. So for communities that don't have any chargers at the moment, it's like these communities are eligible. There's no question about it. But for those that already have EV chargers in their community, we will be looking at the ratio of residents per public charging heads in the community and compare that to the provincial average in the province or territory that you're in. So I know that this is a mouthful, so I'm going to break it down over the next few slides so that this part of the eligibility criteria is clearer. So first, I want to focus on the distinction between public charging head versus EV charger. So I've added some pictures here of some chargers that were installed with the program. And as you can see here, there are 3 EV chargers. But if we look on each of these chargers, the number of plugs that will go into the car is not 3, it's 5. So there's 1 here, 2 here, and another 2 here. So when doing the calculation for your community, you want to look at the plugs themselves and not the chargers. Something else that I want to go over is the definition of public electric vehicle charging station for this program specifically. So for Charge for Change, a public charging station is a charging station that is made available to the general public to use, regardless of the fact that it is publicly or privately owned, or that it is built on a publicly or privately owned land. Then here you have a table of all of the provincial ratios. And this table is also available in the application guide on the website. Finally, the last tool that you might need to know how many charging heads are in your community are those websites here, Charge Hub and PlugShare. And Mandy will put the links for you in the chat. So on these websites, you will be able to find out how many EV chargers there are in your community. So I hope that clarifies things for you. And now I did want to do a little bit of like participatory moment in the webinar and give you a little exercise, I guess, by making you calculate the ratio for a theoretical municipality. So I've put here on the right the ratio of residents per charging head in Manitoba, which is the province where this fictitious municipality is located, as well as the definition of public electric vehicle charging station. And so this municipality in Manitoba, as you can see on the screen, has a population of 12,514 people and is interested in applying to the program. This municipality, there are already EV chargers on its territory. 2 chargers are owned by the municipality. One of them is owned by a local restaurant, and another 2 are owned by a local hotel. And these chargers are for the hotel patrons' use only. Also, so I'll start a poll again with a question of what the ratio can be for this municipality and if it is eligible. And I put the calculation here in case you need it again. So to calculate the ratio, it's the population over the number of charging heads. And so I'll let you grab your phone's calculator to do the math. And I'll start the poll for you, and I'll give you some time to answer the question. Okay, perfect. So you should see the quiz now. So yeah, I'll give you a few minutes to do the math and provide some answers here. Okay, I see that there are some answers already. I'll give you a little bit more time, and then I'll go over the what was the correct answer and like why it was the correct answer. And see that most of you have the correct answers, so that's good. Means you're in the right track to calculate your own ratio later. And then hopefully the explanation that I'll give once I close the poll will provide some more clarity for other people in the room. Okay, sorry, I'll close the poll now. And so the correct answer, the correct ratio is 3,129. And so the municipality is eligible because this number is higher than the provincial average. So what did we need to look at to calculate the ratio? And I'll share my screen again and go back to the presentation. So as I was saying earlier, we need to look at the number of charging heads and not the number of chargers. So if people looked at the number 5 here of chargers, that is not correct for the program again. We need to look at the number of charging heads here. So we know that 3 of those charging heads are owned by the municipality. So they definitely are public charging heads. And then here, the ones owned by private entities, the restaurant and the hotel, we need to look at who the charging heads are made available to. So the restaurant here, any driver can use the chargers. So for the Charge for Change program, that is also considered as a public charging head. Whereas here, the chargers at the hotel, because they are only for the patrons, they are not considered public. So the calculation that you needed to do was 12,514 divided by 4 charging heads here. And that gives you the total of 3,129. And because this ratio is higher than the provincial average, we do consider this municipality as an underserved municipality who is eligible to apply to the program. So I hope this exercise helped you a little bit more and you'll be able to calculate your own ratio later. We can also go back to this during the Q&A if you have more questions. So no problem here. If we now move on to the project requirements for the program, the projects need to increase localized charging opportunities in public places, on-street parking, multi-unit residential buildings, and workplaces. And so these places are targeted specifically because it's where people are the most likely to spend a lot of time. We spend between 7 to 8 hours at our workplaces. Our residences obviously is our main, where we spend most time. And this is important because it ties into the requirements for the EV chargers. As you can see here, the EV chargers must be new permanent installations of level 2 chargers certified for use in Canada. So only level 2 chargers are eligible to the program, but it is because we really want to support the residents of the community transition to EVs, and because the chargers would be installed at places where people spend several hours, level 2 chargers are enough to charge the car. I know that the level 3 chargers charging cars in like half an hour, 45 minutes are very exciting, but it is good to remember that slower charges for the car helps maintain the health of the battery for longer. So this makes sense for the program. Multi-unit residential buildings have their own history with EV chargers. We won't get into details here, but if you want to know more, Mandy is going to put a link towards a webinar by that Electric Autonomy Canada hosted last year that dives deeper into their case. So if we continue with the project's requirement, a minimum of 4 charging heads must be included in the project, and that can have many forms. It can be 4 single chargers, it can be 2 dual chargers, or it can be a combination of both, depending on how many sites you want for your project. And finally, all electric vehicle charging stations will have to be branded with the Aviva Canada and Earth Day Canada branding, as you can see here on the pictures. So now let's go over the eligible project costs for the program. The screenshot that you see here on this slide is a screenshot from the budget template that is available on the Charge for Change website. So the template is an Excel file that you can download and that you can just use while you prepare your application for the program. So in total, there are 6 different sections for the eligible costs. The first one is salaries and benefits of municipal employees that will work on the project. So as you can see here, there is a project manager and there is a project support. The project support is highlighted in yellow here, as well as the lighting that you can see below, because it is an optional cost for the project. So there are a few items that are optional for your projects depending on your own situation. And so you can add those lines or remove them as needed. So yes, the first section covers salaries and benefits of the municipal employees. And if you decide to work with an external organization for the project management, the costs associated with this will go under the second section, professional services, and not salaries and benefits. The second section, professional services, covers any of the contractors that you will work with, from the engineering firm, the electrical contractor, the contractor that will install the chargers, all of these costs go into this section. Then the third section, capital expenses, is for the EV chargers themselves and all the material that you will have to purchase to make the project happen. From the branding that I was just talking about earlier, to the security bollards for the chargers, any signs, painting, lighting if necessary. This will be covered here. If we look at the fourth section, it's any license fees or permits that you will have to purchase to make your project happen. This is an optional item. Some communities that have applied to the program before have had to use it, others didn't. So it's really a case by case. And for environmental assessment, it is here in case you need it, but my experience so far is that none of the communities have had to use it, but it is here just in case. And finally, we strongly advise you to include a contingency plan to your project to cover any price fluctuation or any unexpected work that can arise while you work on the project, just such as, upgrading an electrical panel to support the new chargers that will be here. Before moving on with the presentation, I also wanted to talk about this column here, eligible HST, because some municipalities are entitled to tax rebates. And so the only portion of the taxes that is eligible to the program is the part that is not covered by any reimbursement from the government. So if you're not sure if your community is eligible to any tax rebates, you can talk to your financial officer. They should have some answers for you. But the government also has some documents online, and Mandy will put a link in the chat for you as well to learn more about it. So what is the program timeline? As you may already know, the application period is already open. It opened on November 4th this year, and it will be open until February 20th, 2025. After that, from February 21st to April 11th, we will move to the evaluation period where we will review all the applications that were submitted and make a selection for the communities that will receive funding. A public announcement of the selected communities will be made the week of April 14th, and then we'll move to the construction period. So communities will have until the end of 2025 to complete their project. Finally, when it comes to the funds distribution, this will be a case-by-case situation as well, because the fund distribution is tied to the signature of the funding agreement between Earth Day Canada and the recipient community. So going back to the fact that the program targets smaller communities, we also know that providing funds upfront is a challenge for those communities. And so we decided to distribute the funds into several installments, with the first installment being done upon the signature of the funding agreement, so that it helps communities cover those first costs of the project. The second installment is done during the construction period, and the third installment is done when the project is completed. Note that to unlock the second and third installments, invoices will have to be provided to Earth Day Canada, as well as proof of payment. If we now look at the application process, it is a two-part process. The first part is to fill out a form that is available online, and that I will go over the next slides. And then the second part is to send supporting documents to the email address that you can see on the screen here, and that Mandy will put in the chat as well for you. So the supporting documents include the detailed project budget, as well as quotes from service contractors that you will work with for the project, and any information about the locations where the chargers will be installed. If you have photos, that's great. If you have Google links as to where the locations are, it will help the evaluation committee when they review the applications. So now I want to spend some time with you going over the application form. This year, we've also made available to applicants a sample application that gives you examples of answers that the evaluation committee will be looking for. The application form is divided into two sections. The first one is community information and includes your community, details, address, phone number, website, social media, who will be the primary contact for the project, as well as population. And I will not take too much time here because it's pretty straightforward information to fill out. I will spend a little bit more time here as we ask you more questions about your community in relation to the EV transition and climate change. So the first question here about existing EV charger is to calculate the ratio that we talked about earlier. And then the three next questions about the climate threat, that spurred your community to act on climate change, if you have an electric vehicle fleet, if your community has a council-approved climate action plan. Those are to get a better understanding of your community. And the answers that you will provide here need to be specific to your own community and not generic answers. We've seen that in the past, and so we really want to know more about your community specifically. Also, for those questions where you can see, do you have plans to convert the community fleet to EVs? Do you have plans to create a council-approved climate action plan? For those questions, if you have any supporting documents that can, support your answers, please include them in the supporting documents when you will send that email to the Charge for Change email address. The last question here is, how did you hear about the program? It's a drop-down menu with a few options, also straightforward. Then we move on to the second section of the application form, which is project information. And here you can give us details as to why your community is undertaking this project. And again, we want to know about your community specifically, so don't hesitate to provide as many details as possible. The other two questions is when you're expected to start and complete the project, and you can select dates here with the calendar. The third section of the application form dives deeper into your project by going over each site that you will include in your project. So as you can see here, there is a total number of 5 sites that you can include in your application. And the questions on this slide and the following slide will need to be answered for each of those sites. So include the site name, the site address, the installation category, and by this we mean if you will install the EV chargers on a public place, on-street parking, MURB, or workplace. And finally, you will need to include the number and type of the number of charging heads and the type of chargers for the site. By type of chargers here, we don't mean level 2 versus level 3 chargers because only level 2 chargers are eligible for the program, but we are more talking about the make and model of the chargers. And here we want to know more about why you chose this location specifically. And the first two questions here are fairly similar. So if the answer that you provide to the why did you choose this location is detailed enough, feel free to just use the same answer in the question below, asking about, the vicinity to workplaces or MURBs. And the third question, talking about accessibility to the public here, we are talking about how easily EV drivers will be able to find the chargers. Is the charger by the main street of your community, or will they need to look for the charger, spend a little bit more time looking for the charger? So it is in that sense that we use this word here, even though obviously the chargers also need to be accessible to people with disabilities. The next question about lighting on the site is to ensure the safety of the people who will use the chargers. And you can include more lighting to your project if you feel that the site that you've selected could use more lighting. Safety is an important criterion for EV drivers, and a Geotab study was published last year talking about that specifically. And Mandy will put the link in the chat if you want to know more about this. And then the final question is about the overall experience that the EV driver will have while they use the charger. And this is very important because if a few years ago, when EV chargers were just being implemented, people were happy to just find a charger, as they become more generalized over in the country, people will be looking at other things, like surrounding the EV charger. Is there coffee shops around where they can go and wait while the car charges? Restaurants? Are there shops? Are there museums? Are there things to do for them while they wait for the car to charge? And if we are nitpicky, are there garbage cans close by so that they can dispose of their waste if they have any? These can look like details, but it will make the overall experience of the driver better, and they will be likely to come back to use it again, or share with other drivers that this is a good stop for them. So to keep in mind, two things to keep in mind while building your project: safety, and are there amenities around that people can use? The final section of the application process is regarding the funding. So we want to know what the total project cost will be for the project, and how much funding is requested of the Charge for Change program. These amounts can differ sometimes if the municipality or community has a budget that they are ready to allocate to this project. So just keep that in mind. The next two questions are about other source of public funding for the project. And I wanted to clarify this here, that the Charge for Change program cannot be really cumulated with other source of funding. If you are looking for other source of funding, it's to install additional level 2 chargers or even install a level 3 charger as a separate project. And these questions here are more to are a testimony to your, I guess, commitment, determination to transition to the transition to EVs, and can be looked as a bonus by the evaluation committee when we get to that time. And then the last field here is the name of the person that will be authorized to sign the funding agreement if the community is selected. So that brings me to an end of the presentation. I hope that it covered a lot of the things that you were looking for today. And I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll go over the chat and the Q&A to see if there are any questions. Okay, I see some things in the chat. I'll go over the Q&A. I'll go over the Q&A and the chat at the same time. So there is a question here about a municipality having level 3 chargers in their community, but being interested in getting level 2. Would having level 3 chargers make them ineligible to the program? Having level 3 chargers per se doesn't make a community ineligible to the program. What makes them eligible or ineligible is the ratio that we talked about earlier. So if you only have level 3s, but your ratio is higher than the provincial ratio, then you would be eligible to the Charge for Change program. I hope that answered the question. And then I'm going to go over the chat as well to make sure that I didn't miss any questions there. So the first question that I see is regarding recipients in Nova Scotia. That is correct. There were no recipients in Nova Scotia last year, but the program was open to communities in Nova Scotia. The program became national in 2024. It was only open to Ontario municipalities in the first year, but the second year it was open to municipalities across the country. I guess it was just either there were few applicants from Nova Scotia, applications that were not selected, but the program was open to municipalities in Nova Scotia and is this year again. There is a question about eligibility as well. I'll read it and then I'll provide some answers. Well, I guess this is more a comment than a question, commenting on the charger per capita versus the distance between charging stations. I hear the comment about basing the criteria on charger per capita in an urban setting. Um, when the program was created, the goal was to, I guess the goal of the program is dual. It is to provide more charging opportunities for people within the communities, but it is also a way to I guess, act as awareness and education, if you will. You know, if people see more chargers, they will maybe ask questions, be curious about it. Um, and because we understand that the rural reality is very different from an urban setting. And it doesn't mean that people shouldn't have access to EV chargers. Um, and to sorry, and this makes me think as well of um, an Electric Mobility Canada program that was just launched this year that has testimonies of people using EVs in rural areas to show that it is possible. Um, and the program, is helping more people see that as well. Oh, I see that Mandy had answered that question about Nova Scotia. Thanks, Mandy. There is a question about the population. You can use the 2021 census for population, but I believe the population will have changed since 2021. So it would be more accurate if you have more recent data within your own community to use that. Regarding the financial question about is an application looked upon more favorably if the applicant provides a portion of the funding? Um, no, this is it doesn't take it is not taken into account as an evaluation criterion. It is more for like general understanding of the situation of the community. And finally, what is the evaluation criteria? For example, are projects more likely to be approved if funding requested is less than 100% of the project costs? No, the evaluation criteria is, I guess, we will look at the answers provided in those questions to understand your community better, your relationship to the transition to EV, as well as, council approved climate action plan. All these questions will enter into the like evaluation criteria, but it's really an overall of the application that we are looking at as well. And maybe the section that people will need to focus more on is like describing the sites and answering those questions about the sites as well. And again, providing as much detail as you can will help get the evaluation committee paint a better picture of your project and make the selection accordingly. And I see that there is there are a few more questions in the Q&A now. So the provincial ratios are available in the application guide on the Charge for Change website. I believe Mandy put the link to the Charge for Change website in the chat. Also, not to worry, this webinar is being recorded and will be put online on the Earth Day Canada YouTube channel at a later time with all of the resources and links that were shared in the chat today. So you'll have that there. But the ratio, yeah, can be found in the application guide. So going back to the question of funding sources and if several funding sources can be accumulated with the Charge for Change website. The funding sources cannot be accumulated per se, but if you are looking for another source of funding to add more level 2 chargers or a level 3 charger, this can obviously be done. And as I was mentioning earlier, this might be seen as a bonus from the evaluation committee as well. So I see a specific question about a specific community with a level 3 charger explaining that the ratio is off. I think maybe this will be good to like follow up offline of the webinar. I have the contact information of everyone who registered today, so if I'm happy to follow up directly with you if you have more specific questions about your community. It looks like you would not be eligible to the program, but I'd like to have this conversation offline and make sure with you. And there's another question, and then maybe we'll wrap this up after this final question here. I see that we're almost reaching our time for today, so I can do some concluding remarks and then close up the webinar. But the question is, are there any preferred suppliers recommended, or can we decide to source any qualified, reputable level 2 chargers? That's a very good question, and the decision is entirely yours. So if you know of any electrical contractor locally, please feel free to work with them. If you already know EV charger providers and you want to work with them, you're welcome to do so as well. We can provide a list of EV charger providers that we know that you can contact, but the decision is entirely yours. This is your project for your community. So yeah, the decision is yours. All right, so yeah, let's wrap the webinar for today. Some concluding remarks. I've said it before, but this is being recorded and will be made available online. You will receive an email to notify you that the recording is online and that the resources that were shared in the webinar today will be there as well. I hope that I saw the question. Yes, the list of EV charger provider can be shared with you and that can be done. I hope that this session today helped you understand the program better. Don't hesitate to use the supporting documents on the Charge for Change website to help you prepare your application. And also don't hesitate to use the Charge for Change email address if you have more questions after today. I'm happy to support you more and answer any other questions you have. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.